how that digital filing cabinet basically shattered its boundaries, how it escaped our screens and literally seeped into the walls of our homes, our kitchen counters, and even our biological
A
systems.
massive leap.
It is. Today we are unpacking a stack of fascinating source material that details this massive evolution from an information network to a body network.
Right.
We are going to trace the journey from Web 1.0 all the way to this wild concept known as Web 4.0.
And the sources we are looking at today, they map out an impending reality where your home fundamentally changes its primary function.
Yeah.
It transitions from being just a passive shelter against the elements into an active, high-powered server that tracks your biological data.
Which is incredible to think about. As someone who loves seeing how technology can improve our daily lives, I'm looking at the optimistic side of this today, the birth of the lab home.
Hmm.
We are talking about a future where your house is a life-saving, proactive environment that manages your health and diet completely frictionlessly.
And I'll be playing the skeptic here because the source material also dedicates significant time to the darker reality of this shift.
The pushback.
Right. If your home acts as a server, we have to examine what the text calls the Digital Panopticon. Absolute convenience in this model requires absolute surveillance.
Wow, yeah.
And the cybersecurity risks of living inside a localized data node are profound.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how we end up sleeping inside a server, we have to briefly fast forward through the architectural history of the web.
Good idea.
Let's look at the foundational layers, starting with Web 1.0, the information age.
Right. Web 1.0 was characterized by centralized, read-only data silos. The internet was just a one-way street of static delivery.
Users were entirely passive consumers of information.
Exactly. And the crucial architectural note our source makes here is regarding the physical concept of the home. During Web 1.0, domestic life was entirely outside the internet ecosystem.
You sat at a specific desk to access the network.
And when you walked away, you were completely disconnected.
The boundary was so distinct. Then we moved into Web 2.0, the interaction age, or the social web. The one-way street became a massive intersection of user-generated content.
Data sharing accelerated massively, but the friction remained high.
We were sort of the manual laborers of the internet.
We really were. We had to physically interact with a pane of glass, a screen, to feed the network. Uploading a photo or typing an opinion required deliberate physical prompts from the user.
We were still just visiting the digital world. That brings us to Web 3.0, the semantic and decentralized web, which serves as the crucial bridge to the future.
Right.
The underlying architecture shifted radically because the internet began to actually contextualize the data it processed. Integration of blockchain, AI.
Yeah, the term semantic web is key here. In previous eras, a machine just saw raw data, a file or an image.
But in Web 3.0,
Through machine learning, the network understands the context and the relationships between those data points. Your smart fridge doesn't just see milk. It understands dairy, expiration dates, and the user's lactose tolerance.
the machines are categorizing and drawing complex behavioral connections.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that according to our sources, Web 3.0 sparked the first major discussions about users taking back ownership of their data.
Because the machines were building these predictive profiles.
Right. Users started to realize their digital footprint was a tangible asset. So Web 3.0 introduced decentralized technologies like blockchain aimed at moving control away from massive tech monopolies and allowing individuals to theoretically reclaim ownership of their data.
And that laid the infrastructure for the main event of our deep dive today. The absolute paradigm shift that the source material calls Web 4.0. Welcome to the active and smart web.
Welcome to the symbiotic age.
Symbiotic perfectly captures the dynamic. Web 4.0 represents the absolute peak of human-machine interaction, moving entirely away from screens and manual input.
You aren't clicking or typing anymore.
No. Web 4.0 operates via AI agents. These are highly advanced autonomous artificial intelligence programs operating continuously in the background, making complex decisions and negotiating on your behalf without you ever lifting a finger.
And this is where the profound shift to the lab home occurs.
Right.
In Web 4.0, our homes are transformed into continuous ambient data production centers. Our homes are no longer just shelters.
The physical structure of the house literally becomes the primary interface for the internet.
Exactly.
I want to get into the specifics of this lab home because the medical applications detailed in the text are just staggering.
They really are.
Walk us through how these ambient sensors actually function on a biological level, starting with the morning routine.
So the source material highlights several core appliances, beginning with the smart toilet.
Which sounds wild at first.
It does, But it is essentially a localized medical clinic. Instead of just disposing of waste, it performs a daily automatic clinical-grade urine analysis.
Wow.
It measures your hydration levels, detects early markers of infection, analyzes kidney function, and tracks hormonal spikes, sending all that data to your personalized health matrix instantly.
So before I've even brushed my teeth, my house has run a full diagnostic panel,
Yeah.
and the bed operates on a similar level of biometric scanning, correct?
It does. The smart bed transitions from a piece of furniture into a diagnostic tool. It actively measures your REM sleep cycles, monitors respiration rates, tracks nocturnal arrhythmias,
Is tracking everything.
everything. It maps your overall biorhythms throughout the night using microsensors embedded right into the fabric.
I imagine the kitchen is equally integrated.
The smart fridge tracks the exact nutritional value of everything you consume. It uses that semantic data to understand your dietary needs. So if the smart toilet flagged a slight iron deficiency 3 days ago,
The fridge, no?
the fridge algorithmically adjusts your suggested meals and autonomously orders spinach to be delivered to your home.
I have to admit, as amazing as the health benefits are, I don't know if I want my kitchen judging me for eating leftover pizza at 2 in the morning. My fridge cutting me off for midnight snacking sounds like a slight overstep.
It sounds humorous, but every single physical interaction in the lab home is logged as a contextualized data point.
But the outputs described in the source are a total game changer for human longevity. Because the home acts as a server, constantly gathering this granular biological data, hospitals can predict a heart attack before it happens. The preventative care is unmatched. Right. Your cardiologist receives an automated alert from your AI agent that your biorhythms and vital markers are trending toward a critical cardiac event, allowing them to intervene before you even feel chest pain.
And the socioeconomic ripples are just as vast as the medical ones. The text notes that insurance companies will utilize this real-time health data to dynamically update your premiums on a daily basis.
Which is huge, because if you are eating well, exercising, and maintaining perfect biorhythms, your premium drops automatically. You are living in a seamless, self-regulating environment that actively cares for your biological needs.
Assuming the system works perfectly.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, because all of this automated luxury and real-time medical analysis requires a massive, complex engine running behind the scenes.
Takes a lot of power.
How is the lab home actually processing terabytes of highly sensitive biological data without lagging?
That brings us to the mechanical core of Web 4.0, edge computing.
Edge computing.
Right. To make the lab home function in real time, the fundamental architecture of how data travels has to change. All this biological and social data isn't just floating around.
Contrast that with how we process data now, just to give us a baseline.
Currently, we rely heavily on cloud computing. You generate data on your device, and it travels over the network to a massive, centralized server farm, often hundreds of miles away, to be processed.
Right.
The synthesized result is then sent back to you. That transit takes time, bandwidth, and energy.
And in a scenario where your house is trying to detect an imminent heart attack, a ping delay of a few hundred milliseconds or a bandwidth bottleneck is literally a matter of life and death.
Precisely why edge computing is required. Sending gigabytes of raw, second-by-second biometric data to the cloud is dangerously inefficient. Edge computing moves the processing power to the edge of the network.
Meaning
Meaning the processing center is built directly into the localized node, in this case, your physical house.
the house itself is the server farm.
Exactly. The data is processed instantly and locally by a center inside your home before being sent anywhere. Only the synthesized necessary results are communicated outward to the cloud or your doctor.
Which makes the lab home incredibly fast and responsive. But I know the sources heavily pivot here. You mentioned playing the skeptic earlier.
I did.
Because the text introduces a much darker framework for this architecture, focusing on the concept of the Digital Panopticon.
I bring analytical weight to this because a panopticon was originally a prison design where inmates could be observed at any given moment without knowing exactly when they were being watched.
And the psychological weight of potential observation forces them to constantly police their own behavior.
Exactly. And the source is applying that psychological weight directly to our living rooms. The text pushes back on the pure optimism of the lab home by raising 3 massive systemic concerns about living inside an edge computing server.
Let's walk through those.
The first major concern centers on maintenance, cost, and cybersecurity. We are used to updating software on a phone. The idea of patching the cybersecurity flaws of a house feels entirely different.
Because if your house is a server, who patches the security flaws?
Right. And the stakes are infinitely higher. The text points out that the attack surface expands from your digital life directly into your biological life. We have to consider the vulnerabilities of IoT or Internet of Things
They're
devices.
notoriously tricky.
Very tricky. It is almost impossible to completely air gap or physically isolate a smart home network while still allowing it to communicate with medical providers and grocery delivery drones.
So if your house gets hacked, does your physical health and biological safety instantly get compromised?
That is the chilling question. A ransomware attack on a laptop means you lose some spreadsheets. A bio-ransomware attack on a lab home is terrifying. A hacker could manipulate the dietary algorithms on your fridge to trigger a severe allergy.
Oh, wow. Or falsify the respiration data your bed is sending to your doctor.
And the liability questions are massive. If your physical health is compromised by a localized server hack, who is responsible? The homeowner who failed to update the firewall?
The manufacturer of the smart toilet?
Or the internet service provider? It's a huge mess.
That is a colossal blind spot for Web 4.0. What is the second concern the source raises?
Surveillance versus privacy. If every single corner of your home is generating data, does privacy completely cease to exist?
Historically, a home has been the ultimate private sanctuary, a place to retreat from the world and be entirely unobserved.
But in the Digital Panopticon, the walls quite literally contain diagnostic sensors. You mentioned dynamic insurance premiums earlier as a benefit.
Right, paying less when you're healthy.
But the source frames that as a potential mechanism for behavioral control. It functions as a financial panopticon. The insurance company lowering your premium when you are healthy sounds great. But consider the alternative. They dynamically double your premium because the ambient sensors in your kitchen report you ate processed sugar 3 nights in a row, or your smart bed logs irregular sleep patterns.
So you are effectively sharing your home with a health inspector and an insurance adjuster 24/7. It goes back to your point about policing your own behavior. You might not eat the leftover pizza because you know the algorithm will penalize you financially the next morning.
Which brings us to the third critical concern from our text: dependency.
What happens when the internet goes out?
Exactly. We all know the frustration of a localized internet outage. You can't stream a movie or send an email, but the text poses a much more severe scenario for Web 4.0. When you outsource your biological maintenance to an edge computing server in your basement, a localized grid failure becomes a medical crisis.
Do we completely lose our smart functions and consequently our ability to manage our own health?
That's the fear. If you have spent a decade relying on your AI agents to monitor your kidney function, adjust your nutritional intake, and preemptively manage your healthcare, you inevitably stop paying attention to your own body's natural warning signs.
You lose your foundational self-reliance.
If a massive network outage occurs, you aren't just sitting in the dark waiting for the Wi-Fi to come back. You are medically unmoored. You instantly lose your entire healthcare infrastructure and your predictive safety net.
That is terrifying.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you, the listener, have to critically weigh this exchange. The technological trajectory of Web 4.0 is forcing a choice. Are we willing to trade absolute privacy, unobserved domestic life, and biological self-reliance for the promise of absolute convenience and predictive, life-saving health monitoring?
The medical benefits are objectively powerful. Preventing a cardiac event or detecting an infection early saves lives.
But the unavoidable cost is surrendering the concept of the home as a private, disconnected sanctuary.
So what does this all mean? How do our sources synthesize the journey from 1989 to the symbiotic age?
The material brings this to a very definitive conclusion. With the arrival of Web 4.0, the fundamental definition of the internet shifts. It is no longer a place you visit.
It is an environment you live in.
Exactly, an environment you live in. The dial-up modem is a museum piece. The network is the ambient air we breathe, the fabric of the bed we sleep in, and the molecular breakdown of the food we eat.
Because of that omnipresence, the home is now the most sensitive, critical node in the global data ecosystem.
It is the absolute front line of biometric collection.
Which means our own identities have to shift alongside the architecture. The text states this brilliantly. The future human is no longer just a homeowner. You are a life data manager.
Managing the physical upkeep of a property becomes secondary. The primary responsibility of living in Web 4.0 is managing the flow, the cybersecurity, and the privacy of the biological data generated by the structure you inhabit.
That is a staggering reality to prepare for. And it brings up a final provocative thought that I want you to mull over, something that builds directly on this concept of the life data manager.
Let's hear the theory.
If the primary function of your home shifts from providing physical shelter to being a high-powered edge computing server that manages your biological survival, what happens to the entire economic concept of real estate?
That's a huge question.
Will the future value of a house be determined not by its square footage or its physical location, but by its data processing power
Yeah.
and its ambient edge computing capabilities?
It fundamentally changes how we value physical space. A house with a faster, more secure localized server could be worth millions more than a visually identical house simply because the faster house can predict a medical anomaly a fraction of a second quicker.
Right, and taking that even deeper. If absolute connectivity means absolute surveillance and the psychological weight of the digital panopticon, who will be able to afford the luxury of simply being disconnected?
Wow.
Will a dumb home, a house with no ambient sensors, no edge computing, just plain wood and brick, become the ultimate status symbol?
Yeah.
Will the ability to buy your privacy back and live entirely unobserved be a luxury reserved only for the ultra-wealthy?
It flips the entire paradigm of modern technology. Complete disconnection becomes the ultimate premium feature.
It is a completely new paradigm we're walking into, and the foundation is being poured right under our feet. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive from the simple document sharing of 1989 to the highly complex biological data servers of tomorrow. Keep questioning the systems building the world around you, keep an eye on your smart appliances, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.